So Club Med is well known throughout the world, but not particularly well known in this part of the world, at least as a destination. Why do you think that is, and how is it going to change?
It's just one thing that we are not operating any resort in this part of the world, so that makes the difference.
But why? Because you are global. Why has that not happened, do you think? Because you must have had the conversation. The growth of Dubai as a tourism market over the last 10, 15 years, Club Med, whoever's been owning it, have been looking at that and thinking, $250 average room rate per night, growing 10% a year. It's clearly been on your radar, and yet you haven't come here. So I'm wondering what factors have made you think, actually, it's not for us, and what might change that?
In fact, Club Med was here in Dubai, but we used to be there at the end of the 80s in Sharjah for 2 years. So probably most ahead of time in this regards, which has always been the story of Club Med. I would say that probably we were not in Dubai before, because I don't think Dubai ever needed the Club Med resort. Because Dubai has got quite everything that makes a resort successful, and Dubai is extremely successful. The question today is how far can we go? How much more can we do? And in this regard, I think that there might be answers on your side, on our side, on other side that are not operating anything in Dubai yet. So that's the reason why I'm here today.
But you think now, are we getting to a stage where, Club Med, the demographics, the economics stack up? Not necessarily Dubai, I mean, it could be Qatar or wherever.
I would say that we've been speaking during the various panels of one thing, which is extremely important to the resort business, to my opinion, which is the experimentation, the experimental type of product. But I would not agree on what it is exactly. My belief is that experimental traveling is not about facilities, is not about design, is not about activities. I strongly believe that today's experimental travelers are looking for a human experience. You mentioned it. But to us, a human experience is not between the guest and the staff only. It's also between the guests together. And that's the best way to have loyal clientele. Because if you go for a design or an activity, once the design or the activity is experimented by the guests, they will not come back. If you can have in your place, in your resort, something that creates every time you go, because it's based on your main relationship, and your main relationship is something that never repeats itself, is always creating something new. If you do this, you've got loyal clientele. And I believe there's something that should be done in this part of the world for the guests that are coming. And Club Med these days is extremely trendy in China, for instance, or extremely trendy in some part of the world, because we are offering this type of things that we are not the only one to do, but we're open to anyone also. And I think that's the next trend.
But Paul, if I can turn to you, of course, Kerzner has a long history in Dubai by contrast. What have you learned about what works particularly well here from a resort perspective, and perhaps what doesn't work so well?
Mm-hmm. I think Club Med would be great for Dubai, so we can have that conversation after. And it's to that point that Club Med is a differentiated brand. And that's what Atlantis, the Palm is, and that's what One and Only, the boutique property on the Palm, yeah, and also the Royal Mirage, which is essentially 3 hotels within one. And I think when you look at the story of Dubai, having been here 12 years and seeing Jumeirah have a dominant position and then other players come in, that this is an unbelievable environment for hotels. The differentiators are the key because you can see the maturation of the market. And it's sort of interesting to watch, again, having watched this 10, 12 years of budgets being smashed every year and great profits and more hotels being. We're actually going through a process now of normalization, and people are sort of struggling with it. A discussion yesterday about struggling with VAT. Well, yeah, in principle, nobody likes tax. At the same time, there was no discussion about the fact that the GOPs in this market are amongst the highest in the world. And then you start talking about the world's greatest airline and the infrastructure that the government continues to invest in post the recession. They spent more money in 2008 than they did in 2007. And that vision is clear and continues. I think where you win in the space in Dubai is not building another box, right? Okay. But it's a differentiated product. That's the key. And I think that's where you just get the bed factories And they're just, they're boring, they don't deliver the service, they don't deliver the experience, and very much towards the experience now. And Dubai offers that. I don't think it's capitalized on enough of it. Again, 12 years, there's so much to do, be it in the sea and the desert, and there are those offerings, but I certainly think that can be taken up to the next level. To the hotel level, differentiation, and then capitalizing so much on what is here in Dubai. Because we have visitors come all the time. They say, well, it's, nice buildings and a lot of sand, right? It's so far, far beyond that, and I don't think we're capitalizing on that quite to the extent that we can.
When I was crunching the numbers for my research on storytelling, I went through the entire 2017 Condé Nast Gold list, and there was only one hotel from the UAE. You probably know this, but it was the one and only on the Palm. So congratulations on that, clearly doing something right. Who's got some questions for these guys? I've got loads, but again, I'm very happy to throw this open to the floor. If you want to raise your hand, we can get a microphone to you. We've got about 5 minutes left. They'll be very happy to take your questions. Just let me know if you want to throw a question to them. Paul, when I asked you to, before this event, to think about a problem that needs to be solved, you came up with the environment, hands down.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I moderated the leaders panel at AHIC last October, and in questioning the panelists, they gave their inputs, and the environment was consistent as a top topic. Because there's a couple things that hit. When you think about the number of visitors that people in this room represent as guests, it's millions, right? So back of an envelope yesterday, Marriott has 1 million visitors a night. Okay, these are massive volumes, and when we start talking about giving each one of those people a plastic bottle of water, right? These are very, very real issues, right? And you remember carbon footprint, right? That came and went. Of course, it's still on the agenda, but it's nothing like it was. It was hysteria at one point there, and that the travel industry was destroying the planet, right? There's so much that needs to be done, really. When my precious ex-neighbor, it takes these initiatives. So she was an environmentalist since its 50s, right? Viewed, in her word, to be a kook. She was given an award by the Queen. I said to her, I was having lunch with her, last winter. I said to her, what's happening with the killer whales on the west coast of Vancouver Island? And she, without skipping a beat, said, what do you expect? Because the numbers are down. So can't keep putting these pesticides, herbicides, antibiotics, plastic bottles in the ocean without killing the fish. And it's just a very real issue. So I spent spending a fair bit of time in Los Angeles over the last few years, and when you go through a drought for 4 years in a state with 30 million people have to start to listen. And so, I stayed at the JW Marriott as well, and to their credit, they were taking some great initiatives to address real issues. Now, one of my sort of comical sides to that was they had such a fantastic water-saving shower head that you had to kind of dance around the shower to get wet, right? But they were heading in the right direction, and it's very real. Just by virtue of the number of people that we take care of on a daily basis as an industry, what we could be doing, it's not rocket science. Get rid of the small shampoo bottles. You can have a fabulous shampoo in a clay bottle. It's okay. People will still come back and visit. Getting rid of the plastic bottles, and inspiring people with mugs that are branded.
Much more difficult to steal, Paul.
Yeah, no, I get that. But we can get there. We just need to work together as a team.
There's a point that is interesting because on the building side, there is also a lot of sustainable development to be thought. And there is one missing part in this world, which is a sustainable development label for construction on resort. This is just something that doesn't exist. Got things for
we got about a minute to go, guys,
but not for.
Well, interesting you say that, because I used to run technical services at Jumeirah 10 years ago, and I was always challenging the guys. It's sunny for 350 days a year. Why do we not have solar panels, right? And it was always the cost. Now, our dear friend Elon Musk has figured it out, and going so far in technology. We need to embrace these things, right? We desperately need to do it. We have such a public face globally, We need to present it better, and we need to get on with it and make our mark. I have 2 kids. I want the planet to be here for them.
Finally, Gregory, I asked you about a challenge. You said visas. You've got to keep targeting visas.
But generally speaking, the concept of resorts, to our opinion, is a place where you gather people from different nationalities. If you want people, especially the new travelers, which are the Asian travelers, to be able to go to your place, they use short stays. They come for 2 days, they come for 3 days. When you come for 3 days, you want a hassle-free system that you don't need to go through so many things to be able to travel to the place. And in these regards, on our side, we've been lobbying with various governments each time we settle down a new place so that the main markets that are targets can have a visa-free policy so that the guests can come. And all the markets that have done this, like Japan lately with some Southeast Asian markets, like France with China in some regards, have managed to develop their tourism quite tremendously.
I know I went to Oman, to Kasab over the weekend. Beautiful part of the world. Took me 4 hours to get there. An hour and a half of that was at the border between the UAE and Oman, and we're all part of the GCC. That is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and you can't get there. It's a nightmare. Gents, we're going to have to leave it there. Fascinating discussion. Thank you so much. Gregory Lanter from Club Med, thank you very much indeed. And also Paul Macpherson of Kerzner. Really appreciate your time, gents. Thank you very much indeed.